Howdy, Connection Group leaders. Happy Thursday. I hope you're doing well. I've got a question for you. Were any of your kids, I gotta touch the stove kids? Were any of you, I gotta touch the stove people too? You know what I'm talking about? You're telling your kids, don't touch the stove, it's hot, and they just gotta touch it anyway. And eventually you just let them. Carefully and controlled, right? But you just let them, they touch the stove, and hopefully they learn their lesson. Sadly, not all kids do, but that's a whole other Sunday school lesson, right? That's a little bit of what we're talking about today, though. We're in 1 Samuel chapter 8, and we're talking about the children of Israel and their deep-seated desire to have a king. And really, it's not just that they wanted a king, it's the why they wanted a king. That's really where you want to land the plane most of this week. It's not just that they wanted a king, it's they wanted a king because everybody else has got one. Have you ever had that conversation with your kids? Or does somebody have to have that conversation with you? Maybe it's just yourself. I want this thing because everybody else has it. I want to do this thing because everybody else does it. In and of itself, that's not always a problem. But whenever that thought pops into your brain, can I just say, and this is free, but I would love for you to use this Sunday with your groups, certainly those of you talking to teenagers, when you have that thought, I want to do this thing because everybody else is, that's a great time to pause and pray and check your motives and see what's really going on in your heart. Because sometimes it's perfectly fine. Hey, everybody's got a yellow shirt. I'd like to have a yellow shirt too. Hey, everybody's going to this party. I don't need to go to that party, right? You see the difference there. Some of them are innocent, some of them are fine, some of them are not good at all. Well, the children of Israel here in 1 Samuel chapter 8, they're looking around and they're noticing everybody else has a king. Everybody else seems to be doing better than we're doing. Give us a king. And Samuel says, you don't want a king. Yes, we do. Go get us a king. So he goes and he talks to God. And God says, surprisingly enough to Samuel, yeah, give him a king. It's going to be fine. So Samuel spells out to them, guys, if you get a king, you're not going to like this. He's going to tax you. He's going to take your kids. He's going to put your sons in the military. He's going to take your daughters to be his wives. You are not going to like this the way that you think they are. We got to touch the stove. Samuel says, this is what's going to happen. He says, yeah, we're going to touch the stove. Give us a king. Samuel goes back, says, okay, here's what they said. God says, give him a king. We're going to watch the rest of this unfold. So the question comes up, well, did God intend for them to have a king? And that's both a yes and a no. He actually spells out in the law, and the lesson mentioned this, Deuteronomy chapter 17 has some rules for kings. And surprise, surprise, the kings that Israel get very quickly break all the rules that God says, just like the children of Israel did. And it's also interesting, if you go back to the end of the book of Joshua, it actually says one of the problems in that day and age was the fact that there was no king in Israel and everybody was just doing whatever they wanted to do. A king, in theory, if he was a good king, would have kind of reeled the people in. But nonetheless, the reason they wanted a king more than anything is they didn't trust God. They didn't like how God was running things. And ultimately, they just wanted to be like everybody else. Man, oh man, do we as believers, we have got to fight those desires in our hearts because they're going to come up, certainly in our kids' hearts. But if we're honest, it pops up in our hearts as adults as well. I want to do this thing. I want to have this thing. I want to be like everybody else. And I kind of think I would be better off on my own, just making my own calls. And none of those things are true. They're just not. So let's work together. Forge together, remind each other, man, we got to trust the Lord, right? Now, I will say this. I would be shocked if inevitably somebody doesn't bring up all of the recent No Kings protest as you're talking about this particular passage. It seems rather fortuitous that this passage would pop up at this day and age. And I don't want to jump into the politics of it. I would strongly encourage you not to jump into the politics of it either. Not because there's not a right or wrong in there. It's just it's going to get messy really, really fast. Offline, outside of class, by all means, have those conversations. It's really, really good. In fact, you might even make a statement. Hey, I'd love to talk to you after class about this. But I will say this to you. One of the responses I've had to people on that particular subject, when they say, man, I don't have a king, I'm very quickly to say, boy, I do. In fact, I love my king. See, I've got a president, and I've got a mayor, and I've got a governor, and I've got a boss, and I've got parents. I've got all these people that are over me, and some of them I got to vote for, some of them I got to choose, some of them I inherited. Some of them I'm not going to be too terribly sad when they're not in charge anymore, and others, That's just the way it is. And by the way, the scriptures remind us in Romans, all of our authorities, all of them, whether you voted for them or not, were put in charge by God. We really ought to remember that. But we do have a king. And his name is Jesus. And I gleefully, joyfully, thankfully bow my knees to him on the regular. I need to do it even more. And so let's remind each other, we do have a king. He's a good king. And he's reigning and ruling right now in heaven. And one day he's going to come back and reign and rule here on earth too. And we need to long for that day. And so when we're having the conversation, do we want to have a king? We do. We've got one. And we want him to come back and get us soon. Guys, I love y'all. I'm praying for you. Can't wait to see you on Sunday. We'll talk to you later. Don't touch the stove. Bye.